Can you speak up? I can't hear you. Who is this? What?
If you or someone you know just can't hear on the phone, this phone makes it possible to listen and see what's being said.
Hello?
It's called Hamilton CapTel, or caption telephone.
Hey Dad, it's Julie. How's Mom doing?
She's very happy to be home.
Hamilton CapTel makes the phone your friend again by ensuring access to all that the other person says, providing you greater confidence and independence when using the phone. See what they say with Hamilton CapTel.
Programming is provided in part by the Sertoma clubs of the East Nebraska District. Sertoma's primary focus is to assist the more than 50 million people with hearing health issues and educating the public on the issues surrounding hearing health. Sertoma also sponsors projects promoting freedom, youth, Sertoma Hearing Aid Bank of Nebraska, and other community needs as identified by the individual clubs. For information, sertoma.org.
The Department of Veterans Affairs have referred to hearing damage as the #1 disability in the fight against terror, and some experts say the true toll could take decades to become clear. U.S. soldiers and Marines caught in roadside bombings and firefights in Iraq and Afghanistan are coming home in epidemic numbers with permanent hearing loss and ringing in their ears. Hello, my name is Peggy Williams, Mental Health Specialist for the Nebraska Commission for the Deaf and Hard of Hearing, and your moderator for hearing loss in the military. The Department of Veterans Affairs estimate over 59,000 military members are on disability for hearing loss from Operation Enduring Freedom, Operation New Dawn, and Operation Iraqi Freedom. This means that 8 out of 10 servicemen and women who return from Iraq and Afghanistan report some form of hearing loss. Symptoms include ringing in the ears, dizziness, earaches, and hearing loss. In this program, we will hear from Dr. Ron Liebarger, a service-connected disabled veteran who has started a program called Resiliency Resources with the mission of providing mental health and rehabilitation-related services to veterans and their families. We will meet veteran Corporal Kyle Perez, who is living with a hearing disability, and discuss with our panel of experts services and resources available to all military personnel who have experienced a service-connected hearing loss. First, let's learn more about Corporal Perez.
I saw it coming at me, and it just slowed down, time slowed down, everything slowed down, and I just remember falling down into, into the Humvee, and then I remember everybody in the vehicle yelling, Kyle, get up, Perez, get up, and coughing and ringing in the ear immediately, and I was just out of it. And then when I realized what happened, I was like, let's go find him, What caused my hearing loss was I got struck by an RPG. I was in the turret providing protection for Lieutenant Colonel Dowling and Sergeant Major Edwards. We were a PSD, personal security detail, and what affected my hearing was that RPG, which is a rocket-propelled grenade. So that's what hit my vehicle. The tinnitus is, I was just gonna mention last night, I couldn't get to sleep to it. It's just like a, I don't know how to describe it. It's like, I don't know, something like would leave like a speaker on and just with no noise, but you hear that tone, just constantly. It's all the time. TVs, I gotta turn it up a little louder, and then I like it louder because that's what I was used to for 4 years. Machine guns, bullets, loud noises, explosions. It's that pride they put inside you, and I guess, and some people have a chip on their shoulder when they get out. I know when I got out, I was like, oh, what am I gonna do next? You feel kind of worthless, and then you got issues, and you have PTSD, you're coming back to civilian life, and it's probably more frustrating. You relied on the Marine Corps or whatever branch of service you're in. They took care of you, and when you're out, you kind of lost in the sauce. and like a lack of information. I know that's a big key thing. And now they're all about information when you get out. They got classes. I guess it's when you just want to swallow your pride and you want to better yourself. That's bottom line. When you want to get back to civilian world and act yourself, you have to want to do that instead of just dealing with it, you know. I'm probably at the VA 2-3 times a week dealing with my stuff, so it's a long process. And then, I don't know, maybe some people like to hold on to their scars and their war wounds. I guess whether mentally or physically, there's people out there to help, you know. And a lot of people are stubborn, especially Marines. We're all stubborn. We don't like to seek anybody but ourselves to figure anything out, you know. So I definitely just say, hey, go find help, or I can point you in the right direction, or the Wounded Warrior Regiment can put you in the right direction. Just definitely seek help.
It is now my pleasure to introduce Dr. Ron Liebarger, who is with Corporal Kyle Perez and his brother Derek Perez.
Kyle, first of all, thank you for your service.
You're welcome.
It's a very inspiring video there. I want to welcome you also, Derek. And what we hope to do today is be able to allow you to share your story with the folks out there regarding what your experience was like and what the hearing loss and other injuries that you incurred during your service to our country, what kind of effect they had on you. So I'd like to sort of start by asking you, what is the thing that is most different in your life now versus prior to when you went over? So you went over, you did your service to our country, you came back. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about that process.
The process, like we spoke earlier, it's the mission, like mission essential. As you know, when you're out as a civilian, you don't have these, wake up every morning. Your schedule and all that. It's all on you now, and so adjusting in that sense is very difficult. I like to mention, being over there, you live in your everyday life on a level plane, and then you skyrocket your pyramid up, and then you're staying up here for 8 months straight. You got to come back down, and that's turning that off. Actually coming back to the States is probably harder than than heading
being
to
deployed.
Iraq. Yeah, being deployed. Yep.
And then you are a Purple Heart awardee, and can you tell us a little bit about your injuries?
Yes, I was chosen for a personal security detail for Lieutenant Colonel and Sergeant Major of 3rd Battalion, 5th Marines. And we were, dealing with the sheiks, whether it was, a mad Iraqi or just whoever. On the way home after, telling them we're, not going to fund them no more because we're giving the country back. Mm-hmm. And that's downplayed, but we did our job, and they are getting their country back. We're giving it back to them. On the way home, I was struck by my vehicle, my Humvee, was struck by an RPG, or a rocket-propelled grenade. Mm-hmm. I sustained the concussion. The blast is what knocked me out, and I don't know. I saw the white light, and I fell into like a deep. I just remember just pitch black. Mm-hmm. Whether that flashed my guardian angel or the explosion itself, I'm not sure, but I definitely was protected that day. But yeah, that's what happened. And then, my alma mater, Kilo Company, that got laid out on the couch, and they were taking care of me, and got to Fallujah Surgical and got taken care of.
All right, and so you had a traumatic brain injury?
Yes, I sustained, I guess what happened, class 3 concussion, TBI, ruptured eardrum, and then later to follow a dislocated jaw from a tear in one of my tendons there. So. Mm-hmm.
And you also, I understand, suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder.
I do. That's probably like tinnitus and the hearing loss. PTSD is it's a silent killer as well. I like to explain for tinnitus, or individuals that have tinnitus, it's like when you leave a TV on in the room on mm-hmm. mute, and you don't know where it's at. That's what that's like. Mm-hmm. And so now, on top of the PTSD, it takes forever for me to get to sleep. And now I'm lack of sleep, and now I have to go, and like, you know, what you were saying, you're gauging your sleep, your energy levels need to be up here. You just chop down unless you're not getting enough sleep, and then, you know, finally, you know, just at home,
Sure.
I may have a problem, and, you know, he's seen it, you know, and I guess that's the toughest.
Well, it does take a lot of emotional resources as you try to deal with your issues on a day-to-day basis. And then when the tinnitus is, that's what is primarily preventing you from sleeping, the ringing in your ears.
Yes. Yep.
When you have to deal with that and then you have sleep deprivation, it takes away some of those resources that you have available to you to effectively deal with the PTSD and the traumatic brain injury and that kind of thing. Some of the issues that you encounter being back in this country after having served and having the injuries that you do, in terms of your willingness to seek out help when you first arrived home. What was your attitude about that, and then what changed, and then how did you access the assistance that you've gotten so far? Because I think it's really brave that you were able to confront your demons, so to speak, and come forward to ask for the help that you need.
I guess when I got home, the biggest thing was my emotions. I could count on maybe one hand how many times I've cried in my entire life, and when I got out, I would just lose it for no reason. I have lost control. Like you said, the resources I've had, all my energy was going towards other things. I would just lose complete control over my emotions, and that's when I decided something's not right. That's not me, you know. And the VA's helped out a ton, and the Wounded Warrior Regiment has helped out as well. And then, you know, just being around my loved ones, you know, I'm confident around, you know, my brothers and, you know, and the few friends I got, I cherish that. And yeah, I need them, you know, and they know it.
Well, again, I appreciate that you coming forward. There was just a situation a few moments ago where another veteran came into the studio and could not tolerate staying here in order to watch the program to get the help that he might need. People might not understand that. Can you give us some sense of what might have been going on in that young man's brain?
I could tell either maybe it was the way he was treated as perhaps any armed services. You get hurt, if you're not dying, you got to you know, mission accomplishment. You know, that's the number one thing, you know. And his comfortability level it's you know, crowds, that's a big thing.
Sure.
And like I said, you got to swallow your pride.
Let's talk about that part for a minute. Swallow your pride?
Yeah, you have to want. Like I said, when I noticed something was wrong with me, and then I, you know, lashing out for no reason, I wanted to get back to the old Kyle. I wanted to get back to the old me. And a lot of people, you know, armed service members, like I said on the interview here, you are stubborn. You know, you want to accomplish that, and then on top of that, I think you're so used to having people around you, AKA your men, your
supporting
Marines,
your mission.
supporting your mission, and then now you don't have that. You're all alone, you know, and then you're out of something that's bigger than your realm as well. And I think that's, you know, you aren't fighting for something that's bigger. You know, now you're fighting for your individual, and you're not used to that. You know, you have to swallow. If you do have a broken ankle, you have to finish it because you're protecting this country.
Right.
You know, and so that's probably the tough thing when you get home. Now you got to protect yourself. You got to look out for yourself. And some people, like I said, they don't want that. You know, they want to hold on to what they got, that little piece of what they got.
Well, I think you become accustomed to be working on the mission and have clear goals and have your comrades in arms and those kinds of things. So you're really part of, like you say, protecting the United States and that kind of thing. And then you come home and have some issues and then have those to deal with.
Yeah, and then they're not around, you know, and then it's
just as simple as talking to me as a brother or a friend, you know, just, you know, what's going on, just talk to me, you know, or just going to maybe seek someone professionally. So.
And how is that for you, Derek?
I like, you know, we grew up really close, so, you know, I get, you know, what he's going through, but I can never relate as what's actually completely going on through his head because of what's going on over there or what he's been through. So, and I always notice he's, you know, he'll always be on the phone, on the computer, talking to his friends, you know, from his Kilo company.
Yeah, Kilo company.
Yeah, and just constantly what's going on, you know, how's so-and-so doing, and just constantly being, because they can completely relate and, you know, maybe talk them through something, so.
So it's very helpful for you to be able to talk to people that can relate to you. And do you find that outside of your fellow service members and possibly veterans, that there are people in the community that you can talk to about your issues?
Oh, absolutely. And then, you know, now that we're getting, you know, when you get out, we do classes now, and more so, I was just lucky. My case managers, the VA, they really took care of me, and I think that's another thing, you know, because you are used to just getting told if you are broken to continue. You know, when you're out, you don't need to do that. Well, you need to put your energy in taking care of you. You know, and the local VA and, you know, the Commission for the Hard of Hearing, for Marines, it's the Wounded Warrior. You know, there's people that want to help you, and you just got to make a phone call or, you know, make a contact, and you'll get taken care of. You know.
Because I imagine that there are many individuals out there, like the young man who came in here and chose to leave because he was overcome with anxiety and that kind of thing. What message would you have for them related to what they can do? Because I think that the symptoms of PTSD, for example, mild traumatic brain injuries, have an impact on individuals' personalities, their emotions, and those kinds of things. So if you're in that spot where you really have a hard time even going beyond your home, where can you reach out and what can you do, and what was your experience of that?
Well, recently I actually was very, very, very lucky, and the Wounded Warrior Regiment sent me to the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Yeah, and with that said, when I was there, it was probably the most humbling experience because I haven't been around my Marines, or, you know, there was all Marines that were there. Being around people that have had that issue, that helps so much. That really brought me back down to earth. And it's the same talk, you know, former, you know, 20 years and just 4 years, we can talk. We know how to talk to each other. That helps out the most, is actually being exposed to other Marines or armed service members that are going through the exact same thing. And then, to be honest, once you guys are hanging out, everything's just out the door, because it's like you're back on camp, or you're back. If you do want to remember, it's like you're back overseas, you know, and that helps a lot, is having a good company around you with similar issues to hang out.
And you're going to visit them soon.
Yeah, I'm going.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, I'm going to visit.
It seems like there's a bit of a tension between trying to stay connected with your service, you know, fellow Marines and that kind of thing, versus readjusting to society. I mean, you can't completely let go of one to be able to do the other, but you know, it's an interesting dynamic.
Yep. And then I know, for me, if you do want to go out, it's tough. When you get out, you don't trust a lot of people. All you trust is your Marines. And you know, I only choose to go out with him and maybe my uncle and, you know, my roommate, and his brother was actually Army captain as well. That's putting yourself around people that you are comfortable with. Well, actually, it makes me worry less about worrying about, you know, where's the exit's at,
right,
and who's being hostile in the group that you're out with, you know,
right.
And that really helps out a lot.
And it's an example like that. How am I supposed to relate to, you know, like, well, what do you mean? Let's just go out, you know? And so I think that's why he stays in touch with, you know, maybe talking about how his buddies, you know, in the Marines get by doing, you know, going out or getting stuff like that.
Are there certain things that you do, Derek, as a supporting brother that you want to talk about?
I don't know. Honestly, I feel like sometimes I'm like his assistant on trying to get him adjusted back. I'm like, you know, something as simple as, you know, with his hearing loss, yeah, we'll have to, you know, sometimes we'll have to have his TV up more, and, you know, we'll play video games with their little brothers. It's like, you know, something that's kind of simple, turned down a little bit, you know, like what's going on. But just like the biggest thing is the sleeping. You know, if he can't get sleep, that's already going to put you on edge and just catching up all day. But yeah, there's times where I feel, you know,
So if you notice he's on edge and you're aware that he's had a couple sleepless nights, what kind of things can you do to be supportive?
I just ask him what's going
But
on.
are not intrusive.
Exactly, just what's going on if he wants to talk about it. If not, just ask him later and just see. Because the biggest thing is we'll be watching TV, and it's like what's next? What's next? It's like, no, we're not on missions.
Right.
I'm like, it's okay to just relax and watch TV.
Right.
Like, this is what we're doing, so.
I know at Walmart once.
Yeah.
That's
Just patience. And it's not like necessarily a crazy bad thing. It's just executing. Like, we're waiting in line or whatever, and she was kind of taking, and I told him, like,
just taking her time. I had like 5 items.
You were ready to accomplish
and
your
it's
mission.
fine. And I told him, like, Kyle, what's going on? I'm like, it's
Kyle,
fine.
Calm down.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
all right. It was
Yeah,
like,
but he's
I
so
was
used
getting
to
built up, and yeah, and that's the communication barrier as well with civilians. I want to get straight to the point.
Sure.
Get it over with. Let's go. What's next? And now, he's my reminder. You can just chill out, relax.
That's an unrealistic expectation for yourself to chill out and relax.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Do you ever get any relief?
Actually, I go and shoot. That actually, just some
Working
targets, working out. We go and kick the ball around.
Yeah.
I wrestle with grown dogs. That's pretty good.
Well, I noticed when I was watching the videotape, your description of the incident in which you were injured. One of the first things you said is when you came around, you heard the ringing in your ears. And I've heard from other veterans who have hearing loss associated with a combat injury that pretty much the first thing they realized, there's one individual actually who lost a leg, and he focused on the ringing in his ears and knew that was happening before he ever realized that he had lost a leg. And so I think it's interesting that that's the first piece of you getting blown up that you recalled.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I don't know why that is, but I don't know. Maybe you're used to hearing people talk or nothing, or whatever. You know your noises, and when you hear something you don't like, ringing, aka ring 24/7 or something, it's scary.
And I assume you're wearing your earplugs when you got blown up.
Absolutely not.
Right. And I've read a fair amount about the idea that ear protection naturally want to protect soldiers' hearing and that kind of thing, but based on the nature of the mission, nobody wants to put themselves and or their comrades in jeopardy by impairing their ability to take in everything that's going on around them.
Oh yeah, definitely not in theater, but on training, that was essential. That was just ear pro. That's essential to shooting, or you will not shoot. You will not go up to the gun line and shoot. And yeah, there is preventive, and the armed service, they do care about that clearly, because that is the number one thing, or you're not going to shoot. And when you're in theater, you don't want to harness, because your eyes, ears, smell, everything is just turned up tenfold. And so yeah, we definitely don't drive around with hearing pro in at all. We definitely need to hear what's going on. So.
And then when you have difficulty sleeping at night, I've talked to a number of veterans who sort of associate the tinnitus and or the hearing loss to the traumatic event that took place. And so not only is it the ringing in the ears that they have difficulty with, it's associating the ringing in the ears with the traumatic incident. And I think when I was talking to you, you talked about the idea that the smells and other things will trigger some PTSD symptoms. And I'm curious in terms of the tinnitus, if you also have a situation where it is related to your memory of the traumatic situation or the war injury.
Oh, I'm sure. I know we were putting something in the microwave. Yeah. I just remember it'd make this pop noise. I just remember just freaking out.
Yeah, you got really.
Yeah, that.
Live TV.
And so the noise, I know it smells like diesel fuel, and I know if there's bad gas, like if you lay bad gas in your motor and it's not 87 octane no more, it's like 80 now, that smell is, that will get me going. That will get me going. And if I don't know a noise is coming up and something bangs or pops.
Right.
It'll get them to jump. I've seen it.
And they tell us that when we're getting out. We have a 2 weeks worth of class, TAPS class, and they talk about jokingly You know, that's what we got to do. You know, just like doctors, how they, you know, can joke about death. It's if you're around it, you know, what you got to do to cope with it. You know, and they told us you're going to be hiding under cars, jumping around, you know, driving crazy sometimes, or, you know, seeking adrenaline, you know, to match what you were at in theater in Iraq, you know. So, you know, there's only so much they can do, and once you're out, it's all on you. You know, if you want to seek help, if you want to get back to the old you definitely you got to do it yourself.
Well, it seems like you're doing a very good job of dealing with your issues. Can you talk a little bit about the kind of support that you're currently getting?
The support, like I said, the Wounded Warrior in my VA, the VA, they bust their butts for me, and you don't have that. You know, while you're serving active duty, you don't have you know, a corpsman, hey, what's wrong with you? What's wrong with you? Tailing behind you all the time, you know. And when you get out, you know, they take care of you. They want to take care of you, you know. And if it wasn't for how supportive and how much help they wanted to give me, I don't know. Maybe I just want to give. I don't know. It's just a combination of things. It's good peoples, good foundations, and I noticed because I am still a goofball. I try to be. Before I was even more outgoing, and I definitely. I noticed the difference, and I want to, you know, get back to that.
I think we're coming up towards the end of our time. I just wondered if there was anything that you wanted to relate to other veterans who might watch this show now or later.
I guess just if you guys are having issues, just get to your local VA. They will help. They will help. It may be a long process, but like someone told me, if you're going to be on the phone for an hour to get your GI Bill or to get your VA benefits, you're going to get paid for just being for 1 hour. You know, so practice. Yeah, you lack patience while you're active duty. All I'm going to say is practice patience when you're out, and you'll better yourself.
Anything you'd like to throw in, Derek?
Just what we were talking about, and him being a goofball, but there are glimpses where you get, you know, full-blown Kyle, being crazy and goofy. So there is, you know, it's over time, you know, and helping support good support teams that, you know, it'll come back around. So.
Well, I'm certainly happy you still have the ability to be a goofball.
Yeah.
People serving in the military will at some point be exposed to high-intensity noise of various types. Some may develop hearing loss, especially for high-frequency sounds or tinnitus, which is ringing in the ears, or both, as a result of their noise exposure. Since World War II, the human and financial cost associated with hearing loss among military veterans has repeatedly drawn attention to noise, hearing loss, and the need for hearing conservation in military settings. In recent years, tinnitus has emerged as a significant concern as well. Joining me now to discuss noise-induced hearing loss and to facilitate understanding of the evidence of noise-induced hearing loss in the military personnel are Dr. Peter Seiler, Executive Director of the Nebraska Commission for the Deaf and Hard of Hearing, Dr. Daniel Chadwell, Chief of Audiology and Speech Department for the Veterans Affairs, Nebraska and Western Iowa Healthcare System, and Dr. Ron Liebarger, CEO of Resiliency Resources. Welcome. I'd like to start, Dr. Seiler, by asking what can the Commission do to assist a veteran who is having issues with hearing problems?
Well, the Nebraska Commission for the Deaf and Hard of Hearing has a variety of services that one can access. But there are 3 or 4 things that might be especially helpful. We have free telecommunication devices such as video phones, amplified phones, and a variety of those types of free services that's related to a program we have with the Nebraska Public Service Commission. We work very closely with the Sertoma and the Lions Club, and we have a hearing aid bank. And we provide a lot of services for families in how they might deal with the hearing loss when a person returns from the service. And we also can go to the person's place of employment to tell them how they can reasonably work with individuals that have varying degrees of hearing loss.
Thank you. Dr. Chadwell, what type of hearing care does the VA offer?
The VA has had extensive services for the hearing impaired since World War II. It includes counseling, it includes audiometric testing, hearing testing. It includes, certainly the biggest thing is the fitting of hearing aids and other devices to help veterans who are hearing impaired.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Seiler, could you talk a little bit about your deafness and how has your deafness impacted your life?
Actually, I grew up deaf, and that is one of the reasons that you are hearing today someone with a female voice that is speaking for me rather than me using my voice. You know, it does impact other people that I come in contact with that don't understand how they can interface and communicate with me. But having grown up with deafness from a very young child, I became very used to that. But persons who lose their hearing later in life, they experience a much more challenging event than someone who grows up with a hearing loss. You know, I am very outgoing. I'm very comfortable being with other people and interacting with people. Education was a difficult time for me because the support services that are in place today were not in place when I was younger. And the deafness itself is actually not the barrier. It is the persons that don't understand the hearing loss.
Dr. Chadwell, I understand the most common types of hearing loss is damage to the hearing nerve. Can you talk a little bit about that?
When you have damage to the hearing nerve, probably the biggest thing that happens is you lose the ability to understand conversations. You do also have difficulties hearing sounds, that's for sure. But what people begin to notice first is the ability to understand speech. And they begin to be separated from those close to them. And sometimes they don't realize that that's what's happening. damage to the hearing nerve is a permanent condition. There's no treatment for it. There's no medication or surgery that can help it. About the only thing you can do is work with the person that has a hearing impairment, give them tools that they can use to better communicate with other individuals, which includes hearing aids and counseling.
Dr. Leiberger,
Yes.
did you want to comment?
Well, I was just going to interject the idea that many times people believe that if an individual has a hearing aid, that it corrects their hearing. And like the doctor just explained, a sensory neural hearing loss is caused by nerve damage. And so the nerve damage is not changed by the assistive device. It just kind of magnifies, or what's the word I'm looking for? Makes sound louder, but not necessarily clearer. And so I think that's a common misunderstanding that family members and other supportive people have, is that once the individual gets the hearing aids, that they're going to be okay because they can hear again, or they can hear like normal again. And that's frustrating for lots of folks because it doesn't actually work that way.
Well, which brings me to my next question, Dr. Leiberger, the effects of hearing loss and what a person might experience on a personal, family, and social level. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, that's a big question, but I think that communication is essential. And I think that there's so much strain on communication for families that are involved in wars. So somebody is deployed once or multiple times, and so communication's already an issue. And in the event that the individual comes back with a traumatic brain injury, post-traumatic stress disorder, and hearing loss, which is not at all uncommon, many times the injury that caused the traumatic brain injury and hearing loss happen in the same event or are somewhat connected. And so I think that being able to understand that for family members is very difficult because they send someone away and they come back and they're different. And one of the differences is the inability to hear and communicate clearly. And so when there's already stress and strain on a family, the dynamics have changed, the roles in the family have changed. It takes a fair amount of communication to put those things back together or even begin to. And I think many times the communication difficulties that individuals have impair that process. And I think it's important to understand that when we talk about hearing loss, there's a very wide range of individuals. Someone like Kyle, who's still somewhat able to communicate and that kind of thing, to someone who's completely deafened by the experience that they had in combat. And so I would assume that we have to figure out where a person is on that continuum and then adapt what we do with them to their ability to hear wherever they are on there. Did you want to say something about that?
Well, one of the most important things, or things that people just don't realize, is that hearing impairment is kind of the unseen disability. And I don't know what it is about human nature, but we make the assumption if a person doesn't answer your question correctly, you say hello and they don't even recognize you, or they don't say hello, you think, oh, this guy's kind of a jerk. Well, what's going on with him? Or, he's not very smart. These are kind of the assumptions that people make for a person that has some kind of a hearing impairment. And so it's important to understand that this is an unseen disability, and it creeps up on you, and it is something that we can work with you to help you, but it still has kind of this tarnished image sometimes. If a person is hearing impaired, people don't know it, and they assume other things.
Thank you. Dr. Seiler.
Yes, I just wanted to add to what the previous two speakers said. You know, sometimes when I don't give the appropriate response, they think that there is something developmentally wrong with the individual, but there is nothing related. Hearing loss and developmental disabilities are entirely different. So we can't hear, but we can't understand what was heard. A hard of hearing person might understand, and they may have heard something, but it depends upon how far away they might be from the individual. So the further away a person gets, the more you notice the degree of their hearing loss. So people will think that, well, you must have heard me because I know that sometimes you can hear me. And like Dr. Leibarger said, a hearing aid itself does not make the hearing loss go away. It may clarify or amplify the sound that one hears.
Dr. Leibarger did an excellent job talking about some of the family and social impact that hearing loss has, when this actually could be an 8-hour workshop of what you summarized in 30 seconds. Dr. Seiler, can you talk a little bit about the employment impact for a veteran coming home with a hearing loss?
I think that Corporal Kyle Perez said that, that things do change. When a person comes back from active duty with a hearing loss and they are trying to enter the work world, their response to time and the expectations on them, and that maybe the world doesn't operate in the same manner that they were used to when they were in the military, there is an adjustment period. But a person who has an added disability with a hearing loss, and to the degree that they may need an interpreter, people tend to look at those individuals as maybe not qualified for the job, because it is an added expense for that company to be able to employ someone that requires an interpreter.
Thank you. Dr. Chadwell, a couple of things I'd like for you to address, if you would, please. One is your telehealth care at the VA, and the other one is tinnitus. We heard Corporal Kyle talk a lot about tinnitus and how that can, what you have to do to deal with that. Can you explain exactly what that is? It's kind of a twofold question.
Twofold question. Well, let's take the tinnitus or tinnitus. Both are correct. For years, I used to tell veterans when they came in to see me, well, I've got this ringing in my ears or this head noise. Is there anything I can do about it? And depending on the situation, sometimes I say to them, well, if you drop a brick on your foot, you won't notice the tinnitus for a while. The point being is that it's there, and it may not go away for you, and we don't really have any cures for it. In recent years, there's been a lot of research done on management techniques that you can use to better control the ringing in your ears. And the VA has published, and we do have training manuals, you might say, that we can get for veterans and work with them to give them things that they can do to better manage that ringing in the ears, which has been such a problem for them. Just to briefly explain, the ringing in the ears, sometimes I like to use the word phantom ringing. You may have heard the expression when a person loses their leg, for example, they have this phantom experience where they think the leg is still there. Well, when you have damage to the hearing nerve, a portion of the inner ear, where the nerve is, a portion of that is damaged and it's not working right. The real small hair cells, they call them, inside there, not working right, and the brain kind of fills in for that, and it kind of turns into what we call ringing in the ears. Now, the other point that Peggy asked me to speak to a little bit is about telehealth or teleaudiology. We have recently started this program in the VA just this year, actually. One of our goals is try to get care closer to the veteran. There's no question that a lot of these veterans have to travel great distances. I once had a veteran come in from McCook, Nebraska. From McCook to Omaha, it's a 525-mile round trip. And when he came in, I noticed right away his hearing aids, the molds were sticking out the wrong way. And I thought to myself, well, this is going to be an easy fix. And sure enough, I got to see him, and I reached up and I popped the ear molds in and just spent about 10 minutes training him what to do. He walked out a very happy person. Now he could wear his hearing aids. And I thought, well, there's got to be a better way. There's got to be a better way. And so we have started just in our just recently, since the first of the year, we have started something called telehealth, where we're able, through modern technology, connect to our outreach clinics throughout Nebraska and western Iowa. We're able to connect to those clinics and have the veteran come there rather than to Omaha and actually work with them, adjust their hearing aids using the computers and everything, and get it fixed there. Usually, when that happens, when you build it, they will come. And I'm sure that we'll have a lot of veterans coming in now that before we're not getting services. And that's just started. So we're excited about that.
That sounds very exciting. Thank you for sharing that with us today. Dr. Leibarger, hearing loss affects the whole family.
Absolutely.
Can you please talk about what family members can do when their service family members come home with a hearing loss? What can they do to advocate or to assist the veteran?
Well, that's a really good question, because again, it's sort of that hidden disability, and so there's so many different things going on when somebody comes home. Again, there could be finances, it could be any number of different things, and I think that for family members to be able to get the education about communication when there's a hearing loss, because let's say if the wife is cooking in the kitchen facing the stove, which she used to do commonly while the husband sits at the living room table and they're trying to have a conversation, that won't work anymore, because maybe the veteran needs to be able to see the wife's face in order to understand the information she's providing. And so I think that it's a very complicated thing, but the more that family members can understand that the hearing loss is present, because again, like when these gentlemen and ladies are injured in war, they're attended to in the sense that the most severe injury is dealt with first. And so many times the hearing loss issue doesn't come up until they get home, or maybe they're even home living with their families when it's determined that they have a hearing loss. And so again, being able to give the benefit of the doubt to the individual and trying to make sure communication is clear is a really important thing, because people are really not that good at communicating when they're fully able. But then when you add in post-traumatic stress disorder or a traumatic brain injury and or hearing loss, it makes it that much more difficult, puts that much more stress on the family. Same for children. Children are frequently not aware of how hearing loss impacts an adult, and it's not obvious. And so being able to make sure that, to the extent that you can teach children anything, that they should be looking at the person when they talk to them, and that there are going to be some issues that they need to take care of for communication to happen. And so I think a lot of education and support is really important, and I'm enthusiastic about the audiology thing, because I think there could be a psychoeducational or an educational component for family members in there. Because again, the veteran themselves has so much to deal with. It's like trying to explain all the time to somebody why I can't hear or why I can't communicate correctly. It's just an additional burden. So the more the family can know about hearing loss and communication with individuals who have hearing loss, I think the better. But it's potentially very stressful along with everything else in the family.
Absolutely.
To have the hearing loss.
Absolutely. Dr. Chadwell, how would a veteran contact the VA? What do they do when they come back? Are they given instructions on how to contact the VA?
Yes, I believe they are. When they exit the service, they're given instructions at that time, and some simply just show up at our front door. There's a lot of different ways to make that contact. One is simply call the VA. They have an 800 number that you can call and tell them I have this problem or I have this disability and I want to see if I can get help from the VA. And they can start the process of establishing what's called service connection for the condition. Now, the VA definition for that means that the person has a condition that began in the service and it was recognized by the VA. That's an important point to remember. Once they get that established, then of course they're eligible to come and see us for care. Now, that's one way to do it. Now, you can call the 800 number, you can go online and get help that way through the VA. You can make use of veteran service officers throughout the state. Any of the organizations, they can all help you do that. And as Kyle said earlier, I liked what he said about, take that hour, take that time to fill out those forms, because it is well worth it. And I just want you to know that it is really, really well worth it. Now, perhaps the veteran has the condition, in this case we're talking about hearing loss, that maybe it's not service-connected, and that happens sometimes too. That doesn't mean, though, that you may not be able to get help. And that's important to remember. You just should still go and come to the VA and apply for care. And if you're eligible for care, you'll be referred to us from the primary care clinics. And if a veteran can come through the front door, and we can see them that way too. So you don't have to be service-connected, although that's the easiest way, I guess you might say, that you can do it. You can also just come and find out if you're eligible.
And that number for the VA is 800-827-1000?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Dr. Seiler, you were wanting to say something.
Yes, I wanted to go back to something that Dr. Lieberger commented on about family relationships. My wife happens to be a hearing individual, and I wanted to make sure that people understand that my wife is not my caretaker. She is my life partner. We have made agreements on how she is going to live with my deafness. Like, I have an office basement. I can yell upstairs and say, honey, come downstairs. I have something to show you. And my wife may want to respond that she's busy, and she has to walk all the way downstairs, find me to tell me that she's busy, and go back upstairs, which was frustrating for her. So, I have to instead go upstairs and say, honey, would you come downstairs with me? So we've had to learn how to deal with some of her hearingness issues that are incompatible with my deafness issues. So I think that might be a true statement for persons coming back from the military too, that we assume that the family maybe takes care of that person with the hearing loss, but the person with the hearing loss actually needs to become a self-advocate and develop a strong sense of self-worth about who they are with their hearing loss.
Thank you very much. Dr. Chadwell, do you have people come in and ask, well, what's the difference between a hearing aid and a cochlear implant? How do you help a person make that distinction on whether to get a hearing aid or to have surgery to have a cochlear implant?
Yes, we do. We have that happen from time to time, and just this past week I worked with a veteran on that very issue. I think, first of all, just keep in mind when you wear a hearing aid, it usually fits over your ear or in your ear, and the sound that comes from the environment comes to the device, it's amplified, and then it comes into your ear, through the ear canal, through the three small bones in the middle ear, and then finally into where the hearing nerve is. With a cochlear implant, usually, a person no longer gets any benefit from the type of hearing aid I just described. They're just not functioning well with them, and so they'd be considered for a cochlear implant. If we decide to do that, and there's some tests that we run and that sort of thing to evaluate that, then we can see about getting a cochlear implant. Now that device requires the person go through surgery. They have to take and implant an electrode that bypasses the outer and middle ear, and it goes directly into the inner ear. The electrode comes out, and it's a coupling device here behind the ear, where you couple to that electrode, and then there's a processor that fits over the ear. So, kind of two different paths. Regular hearing aid, right through the ear, to the bones in the middle ear, to the nerve. Cochlear implant requires stimulating the nerve directly, requires surgery, and then the processor has to be hooked, and it has to be programmed, and the person needs to relearn how to use their hearing with the cochlear implant.
And for our viewers, we want to make sure to look at your screen and write down the number for the VA so that you can contact them if you have any questions regarding services they can provide. Again, that number is 1-800-827-1000. Dr. Lieberger, do you have any final comments you would like to make regarding just the psychology of the hearing loss and other things people can do to adapt?
Oh, I just think that we're talking in a general sense about hearing loss, but I think that every individual is different, and every individual's case is different, and that the family support and the support of the people in the environment are going to be really, really important. And I would just encourage people, like Kyle did, to step forward and try to get the assistance. It's a very difficult thing to do. And finally, I would just like to thank Kyle again. You know, he's a true American hero, and I appreciate him being here, and all the work that's being done on the behalf of the VA and the Nebraska Commission for the Deaf to reach out to and support these guys and gals is awesome. So
thank you, and I appreciate your time that you took from your family coming to Lincoln today, and Dr. Chadwell from the VA, Dr. Seiler from the Commission for the Deaf and Hard of Hearing. The information you have provided has been very helpful. Any final comments from any of you? We'll start with Dr. Seiler.
I would just like to add to what Dr. Leibarger said. This program today has been an opportunity for us to share with you what services we have, and we do want to thank those individuals that have bravely fought for our country and to protect our freedom. And I also want to remember that deafness is not a disability. It's just a different way of life, a different approach to life.
Thank you. Dr. Chadwell.
I would just like to say that it's been an honor, it's been a privilege to serve these veterans over all of these years. When I first started in the VA, I can remember one of my veterans that I worked with had actually rolled into Mexico to try to catch Pancho Villa.
Okay.
Clear up to today, it's been almost 33 years doing that kind of work. And I've met veterans from all the wars, all different circumstances and situations, and it's just been an honor and a privilege to help them.
We appreciate that very much, and we appreciate all of you being here today, the audience and all of our viewers. The VA reports that over 2.5 million veterans receiving disability compensation have approximately 6.8 million separate disabilities related to their military service. Disabilities of the auditory system, including tinnitus and hearing loss, is the most common. To learn more about resources available or to get further information about hearing loss, as well as the rebroadcast dates of this program, please visit the web address at the bottom of your screen. As we conclude our program, I would like to thank our panel members, Dr. Peter Seiler, Dr. Daniel Chadwell, and Dr. Ron Leibarger. Corporal Kyle Perez and his brother Derek for personalizing this issue. Our project partners, the Veterans Affairs Nebraska Western Iowa Healthcare System, and Bonnie Bessler, Nebraska Transition Assistant Advisor. And to the East District Sertoma Clubs and Hamilton Relay for their financial support. And also, we would like to thank our sign language interpreters, Francis Boravage and Lorelei Waldron, and especially you, our audience. Thank you for joining us.
Can you speak up? I can't hear you. Who is this? What?
If you or someone you know just can't hear on the phone, this phone makes it possible to listen and see what's being said.
Hello?
It's called Hamilton CapTel, or caption telephone.
Hey Dad, it's Julie. How's Mom doing?
She's very happy to be home.
Hamilton CapTel makes the phone your friend again by ensuring access to all that the other person says, providing you greater confidence and independence when using the phone. See what they say with Hamilton CapTel.
Programming is provided in part by the Sertoma Clubs of the East Nebraska District. Sertoma's primary focus is to assist the more than 50 million people with hearing health issues and educating the public on the issues surrounding hearing health. Sertoma also sponsors projects promoting freedom, youth, Sertoma Hearing Aid Bank of Nebraska, and other community needs as identified by the individual clubs. For information, sertoma.org.